Place in the group stages of the Europa League this evening. Neil Lennon's side take with them a 2-0 lead to Stockholm for the second leg of their playoff round tie with AIK. Kick-off in Sweden is coming up in the next few minutes. Wolves resume their tie with Torino at Molineux with a 3-2 first leg advantage, while Rangers and Legia Warsaw are scoreless heading into the second leg of their game in Ibrox later. Qarabag currently lead Linfield 1-0 early in the second half, and it's now 3-3 on aggregate. Qarabag lead on away goals. Paul O'Donovan and Fintan McCarthy have qualified for the 2020 Olympic Games as a men's lightweight double pair. The Skibbereen duo won their semi-final at the World Rowing Championships this morning to progress to Tokyo next summer. And Nicholas Roach has been forced to abandon his race at the Vuelta a España a day after surrendering the leader's red jersey. The Irish rider crashed out on today's sixth stage in the mountains, and despite attempting to restart, Roach was forced out of the race entirely. He had worn that leader's red jersey for 3 of the first 5 stages. For OTB Sports Radio, I'm Will O'Callaghan.
And the 4 in a row has been achieved by Dublin.
This is GAA from Off the Ball.
We're getting very excited. We're taking over the airwaves from 7 a.m. all the way until midnight. There must be something big on, Joe.
It's the Dublin Drive for 5, Ger.
6 All-Ireland titles in 8 years.
This is OTB Sports Radio.
All right. It's all been building up to this. It is the OTB Drive for 5 special. Nathan with you for the next 4 hours. We're here all the way through until 10 o'clock, and we got cracking stuff lined up as we build up to the All-Ireland final between Dublin and Kerry. We're in St Vincent's last night. We had our latest Super Value Roadshow. We're going to bring you that from 7:30. We were joined by Mickey Whelan, the Vincent's legend. Peter Caffrey was there. We had Eamon Fennell, Mossy Quinn, and Andy Moran in his second interview since retirement joined us as well. So that is all coming your way between now and 10 o'clock. After 7, Miolmar Hurtig and Gary Breen, who has some strong Kerry connections, are going to join us on the line. But over the next hour or so, we're going to pick our best combined Dublin-Kerry 15 since the turn of the millennium. And I'm joined in studio by Dublin's Charlie Redmond. How are we?
I'm there, you.
Ross Munnelly of Laois. How's it going?
All
Looking
good.
very slick.
Just coming in from work.
Good man. And David Brady, who's not here yet. Empty seat for David Brady.
It's the bus.
Undoubtedly something has cropped up. I'm sure there'll be a story when David Brady does eventually return. We're also going to be joined by Paul Haerty, Eamon McGee, Aaron Kernan. They're going to give their thoughts on and select their lines on that Dublin-Kerry combined 15. We do, of course, want your texts, 53106, or you can get in touch on Twitter. Just at Off the Ball is the best way to do that. It is all with thanks to Tech 7. Simply take it and leave it. And that is what we're going to be doing between now and 10 o'clock. So, before we get into the teams, Charlie, let's talk about a manager of the last 15 years, 19 years.
Well,
I'm guessing there could only really be one.
There could only really be one, yeah, true. Like, I mean, there's been great managers there. Like, Kerry have had O'Shea come in for a couple of years. Jack O'Connor was before that. He was tremendous. Dublin, Pat Gilroy was there. He broke the ice in 2011. But yeah, there is only one man for the job, and it has to be Jim Gavin.
You obviously played with Jim Gavin.
Yep.
And there is that photograph that everybody has seen, which is on screen now for anyone who's watching on any of our social channels or watching us on offtheball.com. The raw emotion, the full-time whistle has blown a second previous. Jim Gavin on his knees, arms raised to the heavens, celebrating the Holy Grail, the All-Ireland final. Where is that guy?
I know, yeah. You won't see that on Sunday, will you? No, listen, he is a... people talk about the pressure and about the calmness, and I always say about Jim, I says he's a pilot, and I says he's trained to what it's like to be under pressure and how to react under pressure. And under pressure is when you run out of fuel at 39,000 feet in an airplane. It's not a football game on Sunday, although there is pressure. Well, I don't know if he has. You ran out of fuel in that all-Ireland final there.
What's the equivalent in footballing terms?
not have a ticket for Sunday.
Last minute goal for Kerry.
Yeah. Oh no, don't say that. No, yeah, it's amazing when you see that, and you see, and I'm sure the experience he's had over the last number of years has changed him personally. It must have. It has.
What was he like in the dressing room, from what you can remember?
I can remember him very well. He wasn't the loudest in the dressing room. He was quiet. He sort of came into the panel, I think it was around 94, and at the time we'd have team meetings, players only, and they were very rumbustious affairs. There was no quarter held, no punches pulled, and if Jim had something to say, Jim said it. Like, he wasn't afraid. He mightn't been the most senior players at the time, but if he had a point to make, he'd make it, and he made it very well, articulated himself very well, as you'd expect from an officer in the army. But any points he made were were well thought out, and what he said was, stood the test of time.
Are you? Well, I guess people must be surprised because what they're about to do and what they could do on Sunday is unprecedented if they get the 5 in a row. The success he's had, and when he was first linked with the job from going from the under-21 role, are you surprised at how well it's gone for him?
I think you have to be. You couldn't have imagined that when he got the job, when was it, in 2013, that he would be 6 years later, he's only ever lost one championship game. It's things of dreams. And did I ever think he would go on to be the manager that he's become? No, absolutely not. He was always interested in that type of stuff in the game, and particularly I remember the time we were having a conversation way back and when he talked about the importance of juvenile football and the importance of school football, and that's where the bedrock of GAA in Dublin was, and he proved to be right, because Dublin GAA, they set in structures around the start of the century, and thankfully from 2011 on we've seen the fruits of that. The template we used was templates used by the northern counties. They put in structures and we adopted them and modified them, and we have what we have now. And obviously that success has led to a lot of sponsors coming on board, want to be with a winning brand. And will people give out about the money? It's Dublin who've actually created the money for themselves. And I keep saying to people, if you're giving out about Dublin and the money Dublin have, beat them and take the sponsors away from them.
It's not as simple as that, though, is it? Look at the population that's in Dublin. There's a reason that AIG want to get involved with Dublin. It's not even just the success of the team. It's the population that they get access to by the amount of clubs,
to a certain extent, that's true as well. But AIG wouldn't want their brand to be sold with a losing brand. And obviously they're a multinational organisation, and they want to touch as many homes as they can, in insurance terms, or whatever business they are in. And yes, of course, the demographics lead it to Dublin, but also you have to look at the amount of sports available in Dublin today. These sports are available in other counties as well, but not to the same extent they are in Dublin. Basketball, golf, soccer. Rugby now is huge, and so there's more than just GAA in Dublin. And all you have to do is look at the amount of teams in Dublin. There's more teams in Cork. There's probably even more teams in Kerry than there are in Dublin.
It's time to stop this sensible talk and let the madness truly begin. David Brady has arrived in the studio.
How are you? How are you keeping?
You take your time there, there's no rush.
Boys, do you realise the traffic in Dublin is crazy, Charlie?
I know, because they just follow me.
There's a queue outside waiting for you.
Well, it's just because of the way you drive, Dave. You drive the way you run.
I'm on the bike for the last 3 months.
Obviously.
we will get into how Dublin have got here, and there'll be plenty of time, I'm sure, over the coming weeks and months for how we get other counties to Dublin's level. It is just interesting when you're talking about Gavin and that pilot's mentality and how he is trained through the years, that mentally he's unaffected and prepared for that, I guess, for the worst possible scenario. How it's almost gone the other way with him as well, that even in moments of absolute joy, that actually his demeanour never even changes then either.
Well, as I said...
Maybe, you would wonder even if inside he is enjoying it as much as some others might. And
I've questioned that myself. Does he get the same enjoyment out with it that we are getting from it, that the players are getting? Because he always looks to be... He's one step ahead. He's thinking what's going to happen next. I do know that when the defeat by Donegal in 2014, was it now? And Dublin they were well on top in that game after 15 minutes. We had a couple of goal opportunities that we didn't take. We were probably 5 points to the good, well on top all over the park, and suddenly the game changed. Ryan McHugh went mad scoring goals, and the next night the Dublin management team sat down and for 4 to 8 hours looked at the game incessantly to pick out and identify the flaws, the mistakes that they made, and since then they haven't made those mistakes. And that just shows you the determination they have to get it right, and how quickly they reacted to that. Which was the following night. They could have done it a month later, 2 months later. They went the following night, the Monday night after the All-Ireland semi-final defeat.
And that loss really coincided with the emergence of Dean Rock as one of the first names down the team sheet for Dublin.
90%.
Yeah, because they had missed a couple of frees in the second half that maybe could have turned the game and so on. And from that point on, Dean Rock was an ever-present in the team. Maybe not as effective from play back then, but he was inserted as a free taker, and as he grew in confidence since then with his frees, he's become an excellent player from play as well. And Jim has that ice cool assassin from dead balls that really you would have to say has been a key factor in their success. And he, like what you're saying there, he stepped away from that defeat and thought, is there one thing in particular here that could get us over the line in future years? And one of them was Dean Rock, and then of course how he played Cian O'Sullivan from there on in as well has helped change the game.
We are going to go through and pick our 15 combined team since the year 2000 of Dublin and Kerry. Let's get it underway. Let's talk about the goalkeeper. I said maybe the manager is the most straightforward decision, but Paul Hearty, the former Armagh keeper, is on the line. Evening, Paul.
How are you, lads?
You've got the simplest job of all, I'd imagine, selecting the best goalkeeper between Dublin and Kerry of the last couple of decades.
I think he's fairly nailed on now to be picking Stephen, because I think if you're here at 2085 picking a team in the Millennium, he'll be on it. I think really, from Kerry, you've only really three sort of outstanding players who would come out to you. Dermot Murphy, I think, from 04 to 09 was superb. He had 4 All-Stars and 3 All-Irelands. Pivotal in All-Ireland successes along the way. Brilliant saves, brilliant shot stoppers. Declan O'Keefe, I think, from the start of the Millennium till 03, he was, he's huge kick-outs, great shot stoppers, and maybe Brendan Keeley. He was there for a few years as well. Honourable mentions to them, but I think you can't go any further than Stephen. He's been goals and ever present since 03. 6 All-Irelands, 4 as captain. 5 All-Irelands, 15 Leinsters. He's been absolutely, revolutionised, I suppose, the whole way people have thought about a goalkeeper. Since I played the game, or started out, many of the guys will say, it's kick the ball out as far as you can to the big midfielder, 6-4-5, and let them bait away for it out the middle of the field. Whereas it's really gone from that to our possession game we have today, where it's really accuracy and 100% accuracy we're looking from our keepers all the time. And I suppose from Stephen's point of view, rarely would go below 90%, and that would be, ever since he probably started, change the restarts to a possession type game, and he's been absolutely superb at it. People have tried, you have your few pretenders to the throne. I suppose Rory Beggan would be one, and Niall Morgan, I suppose, another, and Paul Durkin from Donegal for a time as well. But Stephen, he has the crown on his head, and rightly so.
And when you were playing, Paul, and he was emerging, and you were looking at his style and the way he was kicking the ball and the way they were approaching the kickouts with Cluxton, did he make you change your game? I know you played to a good old age with Crossmaglen. As the years went on, were you trying to model yourself on Cluxton and change the way you played? And when you're out coaching now younger goalkeepers, are you trying to say, this is what you need to do, you need to watch videos of Cluxton?
Yeah, definitely so. I would thoroughly recommend young guys taking facets from his game, from himself and Morgan and all the top keepers that's out there, and Rory Beggan, because and even to the latter stage of my career, certainly the game did change, and my game changed from the booming 70-metre kick to the more efficient, accurate, arrow-like kicks from 30 to 40 metres and closer. It was just down to possession. We have to win possession off kickouts. That's just the way it is. And whatever we had to do to get that drilled into half-backs, full-backs, midfielders, and even half-forwards, you see it coming there. Everybody thought Stephen would go for the short kickouts straight away, and you've seen in certain restarts, it would be a booming kick 70 metres over midfielders, head on to a running half-forward or a running midfielder running through, and then you're straight into your full-forward line. So it's about being creative in the kick-out. Certainly the long kick-out maybe has crept back in, but it's an accurate into space where players are running on. And, you certainly you would model yourself up against the best, surely, because you wanted to be the best yourself. And if that made taking facets from Stephen's game or from Paul Durkin's game or Rory's game, certainly you would go after that and try and implement that into your own game. And certainly did that when I retired from county football. It was the case with Cross from about 2011 on, where we were certainly looking for as accurate a kicking as possible, and that all came from the way probably Stephen pioneered the whole thing.
What are you expecting on Sunday?
I hope it's a real I hope it's a humdinger from a footballer.
Hoping against hope.
I hope there's plenty of goals. There's about 22 points on each side. But I suppose if you're looking at it and trying to be scientific about the thing and coming from a neutral point of view, I know there's a lot of passion in the studio there and partisan opinions. And I was talking to the boys earlier and certainly trying to talk Kerry into the game, but I really can't see this being, Dublin have been here for the last 4 finals in a row. They know how to keep away from the hype. They know how to deal with it. I think all they wanted to do this year was get to the final and get the stigma of this 5 in a row, which has been talked about and never done before. And I don't think there's any other team that's capable of doing this except for this team at the moment. So I just think there's too much armoury at their disposal not to go ahead and do. I think there's too many things in Dublin's game that has to go wrong for a maxed out Kerry to win this. I think they have too many aces in the pack, aces on the bench, and whereas Kerry have certainly fantastic footballers and really good forwards, I think this is the game that Dublin want and ready to maybe polish this off in style. And to be honest, if there's 6 or 7 in it, I'd be surprised.
All right, Paul, thanks a lot for taking the call.
Not a bother.
No surprise that Stephen Cluxton is the goalkeeper in our combined Dublin-Kerry team of the last 19-20 years since the turn of the century. Do get in touch on any of our social channels if you have any thoughts, particularly as it gets a bit more heated, I'd imagine, the debate as we move further up the pitch. You know Stephen Cluxton well?
Relatively well, I suppose, from his time in the college, but from playing against him, always a gentleman to play against, real good sportsman. But I suppose one thing that he really revolutionised on the kick out was the speed at which he'd get it out. And all of a sudden, maybe from getting a score against Dublin, they were counter-attacking you off the kick out.
Well, as we heard earlier today, you see they've got the Strurs, they've got the ball boys, they're getting the ball to him quick.
Charlie, relax.
We have got relax.
But yeah, his ability to come straight out and T or no T within 3 seconds while you're trying to fight to get back into your position, he could have the ball gone and Dublin counter-attacking you off your own score.
They haven't lost a short kick out all year. So
no surprise. And they have the movement. I suppose that's helped in some way by the fear of the opposition, maybe playing against them and their game plan. If you decide to give up the Dublin kick out, can't see Kerry doing that at the weekend.
Yourself and Cluxton to be similar enough personalities, DB?
Yes, both very refined, quiet men and experts at our art. What he's done, he's put immense pressure on young players coming up to play in goal. I have seen it, and you see it from 14, 16, I've seen it this year in the minor championship, that the amount of pressure that is on young keepers to replicate perfection, it's very hard for them. And 1 or 2 mistakes and you can see the whole thing cracking. I've seen it in numerous minor games this year that it's an art that he has perfected, but it's very hard for a young player to kind of replicate that, and that's what's been asked of him. I think it's a tough ask.
That's where the coaching comes in, I guess, because understandably Stephen Cluxton has set the bar, so coaches around the country at every level look at him and think, I want my keeper to do that.
It's riskier.
But actually you're probably underestimating just how talented Stephen Cluxton is to be able to do it consistently year after year, game after game, that most people don't have that skill set, and you shouldn't be trying to go for a short kick out.
We've seen it so many times. We've seen it not only at minor level, we've seen it at senior level during the championship, where guys who come up through their club and their job with their club was to put down the ball, as Paul just said, boom, it's 60, 70 yards down there, get the midfielders to catch. If it's broken, contest the dirty ball. Suddenly they go into playing for their county. And now they all have to play completely different games. They have to knock the ball here, knock the ball. Cluxton is giving a 15-yard pass to somebody who's free is not the most difficult thing in the world. What Stephen can do, Stephen can float the ball over people's head. I think it was 2 years ago, we played Mayo in the semi-final, maybe another final, can't recall. The first kick out, Mayo pushed straight up on him, and he turned out and he hit the ball. It must have been 70 yards, and he took the head off Niall Scully, and Niall Scully went in behind the defence, and I think we got a goal, and we got a point.
Scored the goal.
But a goal. That completely changed him. The Mayo game plan was now, all of a sudden, we have to change our game plan after 35 seconds of the game. So, and I think it's very unfair, as Dave quite rightly said, to ask players to do something that they're not done the skill set for. Because Stephen Cluxton didn't just develop overnight. Stephen Cluxton developed this over 12 years. And he's still as accurate as he's ever been. He's probably even more accurate now than he's ever been in truth. But asking other goalkeepers to be Stephen Cluxton is unfair on them goalkeepers.
Yeah. And the unseen work then is the moves, the actual off the ball running, making space that players. It doesn't happen on your own.
Absolutely.
You have it night in, night out. You have it on a big screen. You have the moves that you want to make. You go out and replicate it on the pitch. Guys need to be in kind of a synergy to say, once one moves, everyone has to, and if one doesn't, it's all let down. And that's what happens in a lot of cases. And I've seen it this year from a Mayo perspective, that once it didn't work, they kind of stopped doing it, and all of a sudden you're back to your 50-yard kickouts, 6 in a row, 7 out of 6 is one, and then all of a sudden you're on the back foot. You have to have plan A, B, C and D. But for Dublin, the synergy, and again, you have the Paul Flynns, you have the Scullys, you have the Howards, you have the Kilkennys. You have all these guys that's been there for the last couple of years that have created that same space, that same running. It's not replicated in every kick-out, but there's a lot of work that goes in behind the scenes to it.
Brought an incredible detail to training as well every night on the training field, where it's no longer the case where you might work on kick-outs one day a week. It really has to be part of every single training session before and after as well, where because of the component of the game now, you just cannot survive unless you're getting your kick out properly.
Possession is everything, yeah.
Let's go to another All-Ireland winner. Eamon McGee is on the line, a former Donegal player. Evening, Eamon.
Evening, boys. How's the form, Nathan?
Very well. So you have the job of giving us what you think is the best combined Dublin-Kerry since the tournament, the Millennium full-back line. Who have you gone for?
I think in reality it was only two, because of the fact that Moynihan was an automatic choice at full-back. So I went with Moynihan at full-back, Mark O'Shea in the corner, and it was a toss-up between Johnny Cooper and Philly back in the other corner. So I went with Johnny now.
Is Moynihan not a shoe-in for centre-back?
That takes us on another problem. You're going to leave some brilliant players out in the half-back now. But for me, when I remember Moynihan, I remember as a full-back, and that's them nostalgic memories, and he was one of my favourite players, so it's just I'd go with him in full-back now.
No Mark O'Shea?
No, Mark O'Shea in the other corner.
Mark.
Click it up there again and we have a look.
Cooper in the other corner, yeah. Jeez.
I didn't see. I thought you'd made a grave error of judgment there. So Johnny Cooper, Seamus Moynihan, Mark O'Shea.
Yeah.
Take him down a peg or two. What do you think, lads?
I'll throw in a curveball there. Tom Sullivan from Kerry was phenomenal man marker. Obviously not in more recent times since he retired and all the rest, but in All-Ireland finals he was the go-to guy, cornerback go-to guy. Now, I suppose we never discussed the rules of engagement starting. Is it our best football team or is it our best team? Because I don't know if I ever saw him kick a ball, but
what's the
unbelievable man marker.
Definitely, Thomas Sullivan was definitely in the running now. Like, his name came into the mentions. So, but I kind of had to go with Moynihan.
Yeah, I think
you're leaving either O'Shea out or you're going to leave one of the Dublin players out. And
there's loads of players on the peripheries that could have been chosen. The name is quite right.
Rory O'Carroll.
As well. You could throw Rory in there, but beauty's in the eye to behold in a situation like this. And there's arguments for and against in another three possibly. But I don't think anyone could disagree with Eamon on that. Yeah,
Mark O'Shea, absolute shoe-in, DB.
Yeah, I'm for me, and it's Eamon's. I always looked at Moynihan as the centre back, in the vast majority of his play in his days. But you could actually put him in any one of the 6 positions. I agree. Like, for me, he was the one of the finest players I ever actually, and I had an opportunity once to admire him in the last 5 minutes of an All-Ireland to say, you know what, I'm never going to play with someone like that again. When you're down by 12 or 13 points, you kind of get that opportunity. But he was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Man's class. He would be probably one of the older generation players that would be comfortable in today's game. From a lot of the players now, it has changed and their game style wouldn't suit it.
And why would his?
Because the fluidity in which he could adapt, whether it was man marking face to face or his ball passing ability was phenomenal. I remember him spraying balls left, right in constant All-Ireland finals. But then again, his intelligence. He knew when to go, he knew when to hold. He never left his defence open. No matter who he was marking, the greatest and the best, he always had that peace of mind. His football brain was absolutely outstanding.
so many players that you could and would run close, like Philly McMahon, obviously somebody who would very much come into the mix. But Johnny Cooper is such a brilliant story, because initially when he was starting out, like, he was involved around Pat Gilroy, and Pat Gilroy felt he wasn't good enough. To take that blow, to come back and become that mainstay of that Dublin full-back line over the last 7-8 years. What is he, 5-6 All-Irelands at this stage?
Yeah, incredible attention to detail and how he prepares. I would see him in work, and we'd bump into each other very regularly, and just you know by Johnny's persona and how when we might pass each other in the gym or so on, he does everything by the book, every single thing. So I think in terms of maybe that disappointment from the Pat Gilroy era,
well suited the gym then.
Yeah, very, 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 very well suited to that makeup, and you just know by Johnny, whether it's in work or whether it's in his preparation, he does everything meticulously, and he nearly always gets the right result.
Eamon, who were the guys, and they were probably the three as much as anyone, but when you were playing, when you were analysing other defenders that you try and pick up a little trick or two from?
You know, probably Moynihan was the go-to man as a defender, but you know, you're definitely learning from the likes of Philly Mack. You're learning from Mark O'Shea. You know, that's how you just became a better player, because you didn't particularly pick one player. You can learn from the whole lot of them. And you know, Dublin and Kerry, thankfully, or maybe regretfully for us, has plenty to choose from.
Most of the lads in the full-back line have that little nasty streak in them as well. They'll go wherever they need to go.
Yeah,
you know Eamon all about it.
Bar Moynihan now, they're probably O'Shea and Johnny Cooper. They're just probably them boys. You can have that wee bad streak in them.
What are you thinking is going to happen on Sunday?
When you look at it logically, you're thinking Dublin by 8 to 10 points. But you have to come and think this is a 5 in a row. It's never been done, and history. The way the history is, it's a heavy weight. So you just don't know if Kerry can get a grip hold of midfield, and kind of punish them with that forward line. They might have a chance, but it's just hard to see past Dublin. Comfortable.
Do you go along with the theory that seems to have been there for probably the last 18 months, that the one weak or the weakest line perhaps of that Dublin team is the full-back line, and that they're going up against an unbelievable Kerry full forward line, that actually maybe there is something there that Kerry can get at?
Yeah, definitely. That's the one we've been kind of clinging to a bit of hope that we can beat Dublin. Some team can beat them, and that's the one bit of hope that we've took from it, that teams can get at Dublin in the full back line. Now, we've yet to see a team that can keep them out of the other end, and that's a balancing act that Kerry has to achieve. Can they hurt Dublin while also keeping the likes of Conor Callan, Paul Mannion out? And I just can't see it.
All right, Eamon, thanks a lot for taking the call.
Thanks, mate. Good luck now.
Dublin's defence throughout this championship, and they haven't been pushed to the pin of their collar really at any stage, maybe in that first half against Mayo, but they've only given up 13 scoreable frees in their 4 games so far. Again, methodical, getting their tackling right, not giving away frees in areas that are scoreable, picking their moments to tackle, picking their moments to give away cynical fouls. It's going to be very difficult for Kerry to rack up a score if people are saying they need to get, and Andy Moran brought it up quite a few times last night, that magical 20 points that people feel you need to get to if you're to beat Dublin.
Yeah, I suppose what really helps Dublin in that regard is that teams may go defensive and that they won't play with 6 forwards. And I think this weekend Kerry will play with a heavy forward line, and that makes it a little bit more difficult to do your double ups right, which Dublin are really good at. Traditionally in their All-Ireland finals of recent years, they've had Cian O'Sullivan, who's acted as a sweeper, and so on. So I just think I suppose this weekend in particular, Kerry. I personally think Kerry will go for it, and I think they'll be under more pressure than usual at the back.
Every time someone mentions that it's going to be a 8-10 point win,
Charlie nods.
Talk about the 5 in a row, little shiver goes up your spine.
Absolutely.
Are you worried about the mentality of these Dublin players and the pressure?
I'm not worried about the mentality of Dublin players and the pressure. I'm not worried about the complacency or anything like that, because that won't even be an issue with this Dublin team, and Jim Gavin and his management team won't allow that to happen. What I do fear is the Kerry forwards. Any team that has Clifford, O'Shea, O'Donoghue on the sidelines if he plays Gainey, O'Brien. I mean, they have to frighten you. They have the arsenal there to do serious damage against this Dublin team. Now, we know we've got serious arsenal at the other end of the pitch as well. And you might turn around and say that, okay, Dublin's backline is better than their backline, therefore the balance is going towards Dublin. But I just, we all wanted so much in the capital here that we fear it may not happen. And if it doesn't happen, we'll turn around and we'll shake the hand of the Kerry man
win
and
the next 5
and come back and we'll start the drive for 5 again on Monday.
The drive for 10 out of 11.
But no, it's like, I mean, they're going for 5 in a row. They're going for 7 and 10. No one has ever done seven All-Irelands in a decade. So there's more than just what the 5. The 5 in a row obviously is iconic. No one has ever done it because it's really, really difficult to do. When Kerry went out against Offaly in 82, no one gave Offaly a chance. They thought they were going to get the floor wiped by Kerry, and they come out and we all know what they did. It's history now. Kilkenny in the hurling, beaten by their greatest rivals Tipperary, and what happens with us? Who do we get? Now, as we were saying outside, if you are going to win a 5 in a row, you want to beat Kerry in the final. There's no doubt about that. But what you don't want to do, you don't want to be beaten by Kerry when you're going for 5 in a row in the final. So there's a balance there, but listen, we're there. We're going to give it. We're as well prepared as any team ever has been in history. We wanted, and as someone just said there, the Dublin team are kept away from all the pressures of the media. They won't be reading newspapers, won't be listening to radios. They'll be in their own little cocoon, preparing as they did for the first round again in Portlaoise against Louth, and all the same way all the way through. And as Russ properly said, Johnny Cooper does it by the numbers. Every one of the team do it by the numbers. You're talking about the frees being given away. Dublin, obviously, like every other team, have a stat man in the crowd, taking down all the facts. And if a Dublin player is giving away 2 or 3 frees, he won't be coming out for the second half, because you can't have a team conceding points in such easy fashion to the opposition, because we know O'Shea is wonderful from frees. You've got to put him within 50 yards, it's going over the bar.
The thing that was mentioned is Dublin's 3 forwards, 3 main scoring forwards play-wise: O'Callaghan, Kilkenny and Mannion, versus Geaney, Clifford and O'Shea have equated the exact same return each. So they have brought, in the last 4 games, they've brought exactly from play the amount of scores. Versus
what does it all mean?
It means that, you know what, it means on one side that Kerry have, and I'm not including Murphy there, who comes from deep and runs deep, Kerry have the only thing that will beat Dublin, and that is scorers. Scorers.
Let's talk about defences, because let's get our half-back line. Aaron Kernan is on the line. Evening, Aaron.
Evening, Nathan. How's things?
Very well. So what's the makeup of your half-back line combined, Dublin-Kerry since 2000?
Yeah, I deliberated. I even had a late change, but I went with Tomás O'Shea at number 5, Seamus Moynihan at centre half-back, and I've gone with James McCarthy at left half back.
Who was your late change, Aaron?
James McCarthy in for Richard Caffrey. I had given the team across, and then I was in 2 minds, and I think whenever we sit back and we look at the influence that James McCarthy has had, and particularly in the big games this past 10 years, he's just so influential, and I couldn't really leave him out. While sort of maybe a bit more swashbuckling, and the pace he drives forward with it excites the crowd. I think just whenever Dublin need leaders, James McCarthy is generally to the forefront, and a team that's chasing 5 in a row, it's very hard to leave out one of their main men and their ultimate leaders.
It says a lot that we're talking about 2 of the greatest teams of the last 20 years, and Seamus Moynihan has taken up 2 of the places on the team at centre-back and at full-back. I guess, Aaron, you'd be saying, well, look, centre-back's a far more important position than his role in the full-back line, so he had to get in.
Yeah, well, I suppose Seamus started off in the half-back lane and then ended up finishing up in it. I don't think full-back was ever his preferred choice, even though he did exceptionally well there for the 3 or 4 years that he went in there. But I just think Seamus Moynihan, in his pomp, in his prime, centre half back, would have been, I suppose, his preferred choice, and where he was at his ultimate best. And Cian O'Sullivan is a really key and pivotal performer for this Dublin team. He has started every All-Ireland final. There's probably a good chance he could start this one, but I just think if you have Seamus Moynihan fully fit and available for both management teams, I think he would ultimately be the man. And I think he's the sort of player that could adapt to, I know football has changed considerably from whenever he would have been in the half-back lane, but I just think he had the skill set, he had the leadership qualities, he had the footballing brain that would adapt to any era, and I sort of found it hard to leave him out.
It's another bloody tough line. Tomás O'Shea, Seamus Moynihan, James McCarthy. No Jack McCaffrey. Probably the most exciting player of the last 5-6 years.
I agree. As I said before, there's arguments for both teams and both players, and it's the hardest thing to do. The game changes over 5 years. Trying to pick it over 20 years is nearly impossible. And if you see the trying to pick a team of Millennium, as was referred to earlier, it can't be done because the game.
So you think this was a bad idea, is what you're telling us?
No, I think it's a great idea, and it'll cause loads of debate and bars all around Ireland. Like Cian O'Sullivan, he's gone for 7 All-Irelands, and he's not in the team. James as well. But
I guess the half-back line in particular, that role has changed dramatically over the last 20 years. That we're no longer talking about that player being a defender. That's the first, very much a first line of attack.
Again, we come back to Dublin's loss to Donegal, and I made the point about Dean Rock. After that, he was Jim Gavin's go-to man from place balls. Dublin that day conceded goals by Donegal runners coming through the middle. From that day on, Cian O'Sullivan in many ways changed the game again, because he was pivotal. He doesn't move. Dublin not that they tried to, but they're afforded the opportunity to free him up because opposition drop off and so on. And he has been a key factor in Dublin's dominance over the last number of years, because he makes sure that nobody goes down the throat of Dublin.
Would you have any disagreements there, David?
Jack McCaffrey, I suppose, is probably he's a wonder. Like the speed on the ball, I don't think there will be a human being playing in the half-back line that is as fluid, as uncomfortable as in the ball he is. Again, you're going O'Shea, Tomás, without a doubt, one of the finest. But as you said, it's changed over the last 20 years. Even in the last 3 or 4 years, we see how influential they are at defending, but they're the guys that actually make the holes. They're the guys that penetrate your 35-yard line. They give the 1-2s that will open up the space for the forwards, and that's what they're absolutely phenomenal at. They're not goal getters, but they're goal creators without a doubt, and that's what the intelligence that they work at, and they can see where they need to punch a hole to create an opportunity for someone to come through an avenue.
We'd have Lee Keegan ahead of Oldham though, wouldn't we?
Not at all. No, there's only 2 teams, Kerry and Dublin, the last 20 years.
I think for me personally, to pick the number 1 Dublin defender is James McCarthy. He's going for 7. Will have played in all 7 if they do it, and he's done that across the half-back line, and he's done it at midfield, and that and his ability to punch holes in the opposition is phenomenal. But his athleticism is unrivaled. I think over the last decade he has been phenomenal.
Aaron, from talking to Paul Herty and Eamon McGee and getting their predictions, I think both of them are expecting a big Dublin win. What do you think?
Yeah, I do think that Dublin will create the history and they will win the 5 in a row. But just listening to Charlie there, I probably would have to agree with him in that I think that Dublin, they will be troubled by the firepower of Kerry. I think Kerry will go out and they will go for it. But just for me, the difference is I was at the Dublin and Mayo game and I was sitting 3 rows from the front of Hogan, just where the parade was starting in front of me, and I couldn't get over the condition of the Dublin players. I just thought they were phenomenal. And then I was sitting watching the Kerry Tyrone game the following day, and it just struck me the difference in the physicality and the Kerry defence compared to what Dublin have. And for me, ultimately, I think that will be the difference this weekend, and that I think Dublin will manage a bit better defensively than what I think Kerry will, and I think that will be the difference.
All right, Aaron, the line isn't great. We'll let you go. Thanks a lot for that, and thanks for your selection.
Cheers, man.
A reminder that the Drive for 5 special taking over OTB Sports Radio all day from 7 a.m. to midnight with build up to the All-Ireland football final. It's all with thanks to Tech 7. Simply take it and leave it. We're here and I'm here all the way through till 10 o'clock. Micheál Murthy going to join us in studio after 7. We'll have Gary Breen on the line talking about his Kerry heritage as well. The best of our Super Value panel from Super Value to come from St Vincent's to come from 7:30. But the 3 lads are going to stick with us in studio. We're going to go through the midfield and the forwards of our best confined Dublin Kerry 15. Do get in touch at Off the Ball on Twitter if you have any thoughts.
This is OTB Sports Radio.
I hear you some wiring needs a fixing, ma'am. The name's Buzz, on account of my work.
No chance.
Not all cowboys ride horses. All safe electric registered electrical contractors must give you a certificate of completion that shows their work meets approved standards. Find one nearby on safeelectric.ie.
Italian summers, long days together in the sun, living la bella vita. In Ireland it's called the good life, and it's 3 days in June and maybe a weekend in August. But even in Irish summers, you can taste la bella vita with Italy's favourite beer, Birra Moretti. Ah, delicioso. Great taste, never lost in translation. Birra Moretti, l'italiana autentica. That means authentically Italian. Always drink responsabile. Visit drinkaware.ie.
Join Bruce Betting now for a risk-free first bet up to €100. That's right. New Irish accounts can enjoy a risk-free first bet up to €100. So if your first bet loses, we'll refund your stake with a free bet. Now that's giving you more. Bruce Betting. In store, online, and now on your phone. T's and C's apply. Please gamble responsibly. See dunlewy.net.
This is OTB Sports Radio.
You're welcome back to the Drive for 5 special here on OTB Sports Radio. We're here all the way till midnight with thanks to Tech 7. Simply take it and leave it. Nathan with you through till 10 o'clock. David Brady is here. Ross Munnelly and Charlie Redmond as well. We're talking about our combined Dublin Kerry 15 since the turn of the century. We have currently 4 Kerry men and 3 dubs between Stephen Cluxton in goals, a full-back line of Johnny Cooper, Seamus Moynihan and Mark O'Shea, a half-back line of Tomas O'Shea, Seamus Moynihan again and James McCarthy. But now it's time to get real. The midfield, David Brady. Who have you gone for?
The actual powerhouse, which was 20 years ago the powerhouse. If you look at it and looking back, the consistency of whether it's Dublin or Kerry, the players that are playing there constantly for 6, 7, 8, 9, their whole careers. And again, look, it's honourable mentions, but you have Kieran Whelan was there for nearly a decade. You've had, down from Kerry's years, you've had the Willie Kirbys, you've had the Tommy Griffins, you had the Donald Dailies, but there was only one man from a Kerry side that you would pick, and he's hands down probably one of the finest midfielders of a lifetime in Darragh O'Shea.
So Darragh O'Shea, your first midfielder.
Yeah.
Was the second one as straightforward?
You know what? You kind of say to yourself, you don't realise what you have until it's gone. And I think from a football perspective, the way he is as a person, you couldn't but admire now. But in years to come, we will. What he has achieved, the way he's achieved it, the way he's gone about it, and the athleticism. And again, I think what he has brought more to his game this year is he's again punching holes in defences, he's driving forward, he's getting scoring opportunities, he's creating goal chances and he's scoring goals. Brian Fenton, without a doubt, he's a special player. And again, you go to yourself, it's the small things, but if something did happen to him in a game, in an All-Ireland final situation earlier on, he's irreplaceable from a Dublin perspective, but from what he brings to the overall chain that is Dublin. It's and you go to yourself, in a game, anything can happen from an injury or anything else, but he is absolutely pivotal.
Charlie, you were saying off air when we were talking about this that this after Stephen Cluxton in goal, this was the easiest selection.
I think so.
Fenton and Darragh O'Shea.
Absolutely, yeah. And I mean, there are honourable benches as Dave just said, but even with Kieran, I don't need to come close to these two guys. These two guys are by far the best of the last 20 years, and I completely agree with Dave again. if anything would happen to Brian, he's the most one that we cannot replace in the Dublin team.
If you not bring James McCarthy in from?
You could bring James in, but he won't give you the same same thing that Fenton brings to the game. If we lost Cluxton, we can bring Comerford. Comerford could come in. Every position is nearly catered for, because everyone talks about Dublin midfield. The first thing is who's going to partner Fenton, because Fenton is straight in. He plays anytime he's fit. He plays, even if he National League doesn't get games off. And he is the one fella who was nearly irreplaceable in this team. He has been phenomenal in what he's done. Having never lost a championship game. He's only lost a few league games this year. But what he's achieved and what he's going to achieve further down the line is absolutely enormous. I never thought I'd ever see a player in midfield, a better Dublin midfielder than Brian Mullins. But even this guy in a short time has shown he's up there with Brian, and he's going to supersede what Brian did.
And it's like we don't realise the actual, and it is Dublin, the players that we have in our generation as GAA people, not from Laois or Dublin or Mayo. It's as a generation of a lifetime. They are the finest. They will be talked about in 20, 30 years' time, the same way we're going back to the 60s and 70s.
But I think they will very quickly, though, that if they get the job done on Sunday and complete the 5 in a row, that actually everyone is going to take the time and go, you know what, this is a once in a generation, and maybe this becomes more common with this Dublin side, but that, like as you say, Brian Fenton, what he has done, we're possibly talking about Dublin's greatest ever midfielder, and you can go and watch him for the next 5 or 6 years.
Absolutely, and probably even longer than that, hopefully. And again, we're watching history here. We're watching history on Sunday. No matter what way the result goes, you're watching history. Only 3 teams who have ever gone, only 3 times, this is the 3rd time that a team has gone to play the final for the 5 in a row. The Wexford team of the war years, Dublin beat them in the Leinster semi-final. It was Tipperary Tipperary beat Kilkenny going for it, and Offaly beat Kerry, as we've alluded to before. And we have here a team that will be, and even if they don't win on Sunday, they will still be revered as O'Shea, Spillane, all the guys from Kerry, Manny, all those lads, O'Sheahy, Walsh. Those boys will be mentioned in the same vein and in the same and up in the upper echelon of the GAA for eternity. That's without doubt.
You're not as convinced that Fenton's irreplaceable?
I'm not going to take away from anything the lads have said. He's an incredible player, an incredible athlete. I think Dublin could survive without him. I think you'd imagine they'll start Macaulay midfield at the weekend. I think if Fenton was to lose out for whatever reason, I think Howard could do a job there. And I also think James McCarthy could do a hell of a job there, as he has done before.
Macaulay's a great story, isn't he, this season? Because it looked as though his career was sort of just coming to that natural end, and what a career it would have been. But to get the head down and force his way back in under Jim Gavin, which can't be an easy thing to do. Like, it's a mark of the man.
And he gives that unpredictability when he has the ball in hand, because he just goes forward with such aggression, and he's bursting through tackles. And a couple of years ago, there's times he would have shot, whereas this year he's getting forward to create that space, and he is not interested in shooting. He knows his job when he gets to a certain position is to offload to forwards, where a couple of years he mightn't have done that.
Yeah, and I have got into heated conversations with people whose opinion I would respect and listening to Barry Cahill and Darren O'Sullivan, you're going, he wasn't even regarded as a footballer going back to when he came first into Pat Gilroy's side. He wasn't even regarded as a club footballer. But the way that he has developed, but the game has developed for him as well. It's more of athletic, his athleticism is ideally suited, his ball handling skills, his peripheral passing, his knowledge of who's around him and where the players are. I think he could have, like anyone else, would be happy to filter out last year and saying, you know what, but he has proven it. And I think Gavin has tested him as well to say, you know what, I'm just not convinced. He has put him back in again. He has put him constantly in to say, right, if he makes one false move and he's gone, because you're always on the edge when you're at the age profile he is and the mileage he has on the clock. But he will give it all again on Sunday. And yeah, I do think there's players to replace Macaulay, but regards Fenton, it's a major ask for someone to slip in and do the all-encompassing job that he does. There's going to be some aerial jewels in this game on Sunday, and he's going to be needed for them.
Let's quickly get to the half-forward line. Did you pick all 6 forwards, did you?
I got the big job, yeah.
You want to let Ross have a...
well,
this is Charlie,
fine.
come on.
Jeez. It's typical Dubs. Take it all. Leave nothing. All right, who have you gone for?
Whatever he picks, disagree.
I'm sure they're going to get crucified from both ends of the country for my selection here. I've gone for the 2 wing forwards from Dublin, Paul Flynn and Dermot Connolly. To me, those guys from 2011 nearly to 2017 were the 2 go-to guys for Dublin. They were phenomenal. They were the best players in the country in their positions. And when I think of other players who could have gone in there, Paul Galvin, it's hard to leave out Paul Galvin, one of my favourite players. When you look at the players we haven't picked on this team, there's a number of players who got Player of the Year during those times. Darragh Macaulay, Paul Galvin. Alan Brogan is not going to get selected either. They're 3 guys who are one Player of the Year during this term, but they're not selected. And as I said, beauty is an eye beholder. Declan O'Sullivan at centre forward to me is one of my favourite footballers, and it's the way he plays football, the way he sort of guides in and out of games, and the free he gave away in the 2011 final and let McMenamin in was probably swung it for me.
While you're at it, let's get the full forward line up, by the way, just so we don't run out of time.
Full forward line. Well, I think Cooper would get into anyone's team. I think he's been a player of a generation. It's been an absolute joy to see him playing football, the way he swivels, turns left or right, over the bar. Kieran Donaghy, at full forward, he's one of the best I've ever seen. He can put a low ball in, a high ball in. He'll compete for everything and he'll cause damage everywhere. And Bernard Brogan in the other corner, I just think to see that guy playing football, we've been so fortunate. When he was in his prime, there was him and Cooper. They were the 2 best forwards in the country. Now,
a bit nostalgic. No, leaving out the current Dublin forward line.
Paul Mannion, Conor Callaghan, Kieran Kilkenny. Kieran Kilkenny was the one I
major omission.
That's going to be a debate for the next 20 years.
Absolutely.
Kilkenny or Flynn.
And the reason I went for Declan O'Sullivan's longevity. He played over so many years. Kieran is here, he's in his 4th year with us again. And again, Conor Callaghan, I could have put him in. He's only there for 2 years. I would put Bernard Brogan and Colin Cooper ahead of them.
No Darragh Caniggia?
No, because I think Kieran Donaghy is the... Listen, as I said, I'm going to get crucified for this. This to me is what my best team is, and I go to war with those guys.
Anyway. Looking at that team, Donaghy's going to be getting stressed over the next couple of years when he's watching Conor Callaghan.
Well, as Conor Callaghan gets more goals, he's getting closer to the sideline.
Can you disagree with any of that, Ross?
Maybe when Charlie goes. I don't like the way he's sitting here beside me. No. Full forward line, I couldn't disagree with. I think Bernard has just been a phenomenal scorer in any sort of games, big games, and I think one of his best performances that I would have seen him playing was against Donegal, the time when in the All-Ireland semi-final when Donegal just played everybody behind the ball, and Brogan's job that day, obviously it wasn't scoring, it was to win just a couple of balls out in front of Neil McGee, particularly in the second half when Dublin just needed that little bit of possession, lay off and score. And for me, that was one of his most memorable games, even though I would always associate him with scoring. Gooch, just top class, and I was having a chat with someone earlier on about Donaghy, and we were just talking about Donaghy's ability to score goals in All-Ireland finals is probably unrivalled.
Don't talk to David about it.
Cork,
unfortunately, he's a good one.
Was any signs that this giant Kerry man could do some damage?
And again, if you're looking at this guy, you talk about great stories. This guy came through the underdogs, and all of a sudden he changed the game for a period of 4 or 5 years. Everybody started putting big men full forward. So you're looking at that top 15, and you're saying there's several players there in that team that actually revolutionised the game in their own way. So
if you put all, and you're going the great Kerry players the last 20 years, the forwards and the great Dublin forwards in a room, you'd stand back in awe of the amount of players that's not there, as you said. And you have the likes of the Mike Franks, and these guys were just sublime footballers. Skill undebated, just phenomenal. It has been, and you look at Bernard, you go back to where he was really, in what Dublin were, and the way he's come. Like, he was there in the dark days.
Absolutely, yeah.
And again, probably carried a lot of it on his shoulders, maybe too much. And the way that he has changed, his ethos, his game, it's some story. Will he make the panel?
I really, really hope he does.
Jesus, I hope he does.
But I think
from what I've seen, especially in the Tyrone game, he seems to be just touching the ground. He is as if I was standing back and says, who's eager here, or who's really impressing me? And when he's come on, he is hungry. I wouldn't like to see him at training.
Well, you know, no word comes out of Dublin camp, whatever happens. But some words that Pilford out is that Bernard has been flying for 2 or 3 months now, and he only got a few minutes against Tyrone. He wasn't involved. He wasn't tugged out against Mayo. That leads me to believe he's not going to get tugged out on Sunday. But I think I would love him to get a game on Sunday. I'd love him to get a jersey Sunday, get a game Sunday, and hopefully, if we were to win, that he could end his career and give it the proper platform.
We've got to wrap, lads, but you're going to stick with us because the great Micheál Hurtig is going to join us in studio, and we're going to go live on the radio in a moment. It did finish up from that 15, 8 Kerry, 7 Dublin.
Oh, 7-7 Moynihan was there twice. They put Jack McCaffrey in.
All right, that's it for this hour. Coming up, we'll be continuing our chat online, and we'll also be going live on the radio with Micheál Hurtig, and we'll bringing you the best bits from our OTB Roadshow from St Vincent's last night. A reminder that the Drive for 5 special is taking over OTB Sports Radio all day, 7 a.m. to midnight, with build up to the All-Ireland football final. It's all with thanks to Tech 7. Simply take it and leave it.
Off the ball.